Hello and welcome to our Art and Architecture webinar series. I'm Curt DiCamillo, the curator of fine art at American Ancestors. I'm lucky enough to be your moderator and virtual MC for today's event. American Ancestors is a nonprofit organization supported by our members and donors. We're the oldest and largest genealogical society in the world. We specialize in providing resources, research, and expertise that uncover the stories of families, family objects, and family homes. We are pleased to offer such programming for our members and friends around the world. Today, two of New Orleans' most beloved hosts, Michael Harold and Quinn Peeper, will give us an online tour of their fabulous lifestyle. We'll visit their antique-filled 19th century Garden District home and hear stories of great food, musical performances, and seasonal celebrations that they've hosted for family, friends, and nonprofits. Michael and Quinn's unique entertaining style is shared in their 2023 book, Classical Shindig, Amateur Artistry from the Simple to the Sublime, which contains hundreds of photographs and recipes for every occasion. I would like to thank the Joseph and Robert Cornell Memorial Foundation for their generous sponsorship of the Art and Architecture webinar series. Michael Harold, a lawyer and native of New Orleans, began studying the piano at the age of 8 and has played in concert halls around the world. He serves on the boards of numerous organizations that focus on classical music, education, and Spanish and French culture. Born in Arkansas, Quinn Peeper practices obstetrics and gynecology in New Orleans. He had his Carnegie Hall debut in 1997 and has played with major symphonies around the world. Quinn is chairman of the English-speaking Union of the United States, a trustee of the National Trust for Scotland, USA, and serves as the honorary British Consul General to New Orleans. Here you see the cover of their luscious book, which will be the focus of everything we're talking about today. You will receive details about how you can buy this book in the email that will follow today's lecture. Now, please join me in welcoming Michael and Quinn.
Hello.
Hey, thank you, Curt.
Okay, Curt, I hope you can hear us. We can't tell, but I think so. Anyway, we'll get started. Thank you all for having me. We're very honored to be a part of this. And
so I'd like to start. This is Quinn here, talking about how and why did we create this book? And it goes back to a dinner in London that we had with a friend, Flora Fraser, who had her mother in attendance, Lady Antonia Fraser, both of whom are part of that biography dynasty of Pakenhams and Frasers. And at one point in the luncheon, Flora looked at the crowd and said, "I'm so delighted that we all have written a book." And Michael and I just kind of looked at the floor because while I've written some books of gynecologic interest, they're not on anybody's coffee table. So I think that was at that point that we decided that we really should do something about this problem and get a book out.
And that's how it happened. And in fact, after this wonderful luncheon, we got on the plane and Quinn said, "Okay, well, I'm embarrassed. I've never written a book and everybody else in the room has." And I said, "Well, I haven't either. It's no big deal." And so he decided, let's do it. And I said, "All right, fine. We'll try it out." So I guess next slide, please. We had to come up with a title, of course. And how does one choose a title? We both share one thing that many things, but one thing we love in common is classical music. And we thought, how do we put classical in here? And I said, well, we have to do it in some sort of way because we both love classical piano music. I specifically love Mozart and Bach, and Quinn loves the great old 19th century romantic stuff. And then we had to come up with something that had to deal with parties and entertainment because we want to use our house in New Orleans for that very special purpose.
So the next slide will show why Shindig. And what you see on the left is my grandmother's house in Arkansas. I was born in Osceola, Arkansas. My grandmother is the middle lady in the middle photograph. And she is with her sisters on the right in blue. And we would spend the weekends at my grandparents' house. My parents were fairly young and they were living the party life in Memphis. My grandmother and grandfather took us on weekends. And my grandmother would frequently throw her house open for different occasions. And someone during the week had died in her church community. So Saturday was going to be a post-gathering of this funeral. So my brother and my sister and I were at our house, and being the good English student that I was, my English professor, our English teacher in grammar school, said, make sure you use all these vocabulary words. so you can come back to class on Monday. So I said, well, you know, Mima, what time is the big shindig? And her eyes nearly fell out of her head because shindig, you know, has a derivation, an Irish derivation, and it usually involves a party with some booze and dancing. And this was a Southern Baptist funeral, so it wasn't really a shindig, but it was a perfect title, classical shindig, to I think to encapsulate everything that is about entertaining in our lives. So the first instance of classical shindig materializing into a book came about with this fundraiser that we did in New Orleans. The English-speaking union turned 100 years old, the English-speaking union of the United States, in 2018. And the national meeting, the annual convention, was going to be in New Orleans. And I wanted to do special events to commemorate this and not the usual, you know, speaker, black tie sort of thing. So the Orpheum Theater is a historic theater here, and the New Orleans orchestra is called the Louisiana Philharmonic. And Rachmaninoff was the title I came up with because I wanted to play Rachmaninoff 2, and Michael played Bach number 5. Next. This shows just the beginning of our piano career. I'm on the left with my baby brother. And how many of you know Harry Connick Jr.? Harry Connick Sr. made national news, actually. He died just the other day.
Yesterday.
But Michael actually has the distinction of beating Harry Connick Jr. in a Beethoven competition. And so here he is performing with a New Orleans symphony. Next.
October 1979. I remember the year and the month.
So our book has the end papers. I wanted to make something creative. I make marbleized paper. And the end papers of our book has, at the beginning, our formative years when we both made high school senior recitals, and then in the back, what we've done recently as far as programs involving our music. And you see here that commemorative stamps of the composers as well as some music are included in these collages. Next. This is just a bit more of a history of piano. You can see on the right, I was a student at Oxford during that time. I gave several student recitals. And then on the left, this is when I was a resident. This was a competition that was in Italy, and I won and got to come back. Next.
So Quinn decides, he calls up the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra for our ESU convention here in New Orleans, and he asked the program director, he said, I'm kind of curious, how much would it cost for Michael and me to play with the orchestra? And the guy says, well, we are $35,000 for 2 hours. And actually, he, first of all, just asked if they would come and play at our gala. And then he called back and said, Michael and I would like to play. How much would it cost? And he said, well, it's the same amount, but no one could just show up and say, I want to play with the Louisiana Philharmonic. So we happen to have friends on the board, and Quinn calls up the friends and they vouch for us. And he comes home one day and says, well, guess what? We're going to play piano concerti. And I said, oh my God, I'm too nervous. I don't think I can do this at all. And we have an Irish piano teacher who came from Ireland to work with us, who was incredible. And we actually did it, but we had to raise the funds to pay the $35,000. Quinn will tell you, he wrote a check and we had to pay him.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the line for 35 grand. Fortunately, with this fundraiser, and it was all to celebrate ESU's 100th anniversary, we made over $160,000. But part of the deal of getting people and attracting people to come to the event was marketing. And I recently, well, I would say at age 53, I got an MBA and I loved marketing. So I had a marketing plan, and it included a website and some fun photographs. And you'll see me on the left as Rachmaninoff, and Michael dressed as Bach. So we did all sorts of engaging, entertaining things to get people to buy tickets.
Next slide.
Michael was all upset about wearing the big wig,
Yeah.
but you know, wearing the big wig is nothing to having a crew cut like Rachmaninoff had and not waiting 3 months for my hair to grow back.
Yeah, right, sure. So here we are. We have a great photographer who did this for us to do the Blues Brothers.
And in the next slide, you'll see a wonderful watercolorist in England named Paul Cox. He works for the Folio Society, or he does some illustrations for the Folio Society. You may know him from his Birdie and Jeeves books, and he just has a whimsical sort of 1920s feel to his illustrations. So Paul has done things for us in the past, and he captured us perfectly in the historic Orpheum Theater here in New Orleans. Me as Rachmaninoff and Michael in the big wig as Bach behind. The next slide will show some other marketing things that we did. We were on TV shows, magazines, etc. Anything to get people to buy tickets.
This is the big event, our big concert. Here I am. I just finished playing my Bach piano concerto, and we have a guest conductor from St. Louis who Quinn had to warn him. He said, guess what happens in New Orleans? Our audience is going to be so thrilled that they're going to clap in between movements. And sure enough, here's Quinn.
Yeah, I'm waving to the audience between movement 1 and 2. Rachmaninoff 2 is about a 39, 40-minute piece. So I'm letting them know, thank you so much, but I still have some more to go here. So the next day, after inviting all of our friends from grammar school, medical school, law school, you name it, to New Orleans, we felt we had brought a big crowd together. We need to entertain them in some way. And this is the dining room of our house. And so we had everyone for a post-concert breakfast before people got their flights to go back home. And the next slide will show a little bit more about the house. You see our house is on the right, and it is in the typical Garden District style. It was built in 1862. I always wanted an antebellum home because we love soaring ceilings. They are 14 feet in our house. But because this was built in 1862, it's just plain old bellum. It's not ante at all. But and you see a little bit of Rachmaninoff. We had some Russian blinis and some Bach-inspired German sausages for the occasion. But in the next slide, we'll show people really love coming to New Orleans, hearing a jazz combo. They want to get the Bananas Foster. And the photograph on the right is my uncle's duck dip recipe, which is a recipe that's in the book. It's a photograph of it. And I come from a big tradition in Arkansas and Tennessee of going duck, deer hunting on weekends. And so this was a big hit at the party too. The fellow in the middle between Michael and I is the formidable Irish piano teacher, Frank Keenahan, who really cracked the whip and got us to do the work.
Now, talk about this one. Quinn will talk about the great indoors of our house. Next.
So as a way of getting started with the lecture and as way of getting started in the book in general, I'm sure many of you are familiar with theme and variations. So the Great Indoors chapter is kind of the theme. It shows our house and how we put it together. And the variations are how we use it for different celebrations, like seasonal celebrations, or we have a lot of nonprofit parties here. So it'll show how the house changes. This is the foyer of the house, which we took out a staircase. Our house was a double, and that can mean a side-by-side. I'll take anything, any way you want to call it, except my Alabama friend who called it a double wide. I'm like, no, we don't live in a double wide. But we took out strategically throughout the house some walls to make it a single dwelling. And we'll show you that as we move forward on the slides. So this is still more of the foyer. I also like to do a lot of decoupage. And on the left is one of my decoupage
obelisk.
Yeah, with 19th century coins that I, probably shouldn't have cut up, but I did, and put them on the obelisk. The next slide shows our living room.
So we're going to give you, this is some of these photographs that you're about to see are not in our book, but we thought that to some of the groups that we've been speaking to, they like historic preservation and they like seeing a house being renovated. And so we decided to do a few before and after pictures. Here is our living room currently where we're sitting right now, but under that portrait. Here's a before picture. Quinn can tell you about the bookshelves. He knows about these.
Well, the bookshelves were inspired by a visit to Holcomb Hall, as were a lot of things in our house. I mean, we had been going on stately homes and gardens or historic homes and gardens trips forever. In fact, Curt DiCamillo,
Shropshire.
Took us through Shropshire. And, we've had a grand time. But it's impossible to go on those trips without absorbing some of the fascinating and wondrous homes. And the next slide will show how we brought a little bit of Holcomb home. I mean, obviously they're not as grand. The ceilings here are 14 feet, but with a little gilding and molding, we had an architect to sort of help do the rendering for these, and they turned out pretty well. Next slide,
we have a
show
friend.
How we use the room.
Yeah, we have a friend who lives in the French Quarter, and she has a great tone of phrase, and she also wanted to call our style, and her style, because we're influenced by her, Swamp Palazzo. And this is her idea of how to create a swamp palazzo theme down in New Orleans. Next.
This is a library. These are Louisiana cypress bookcases. And we didn't want to do anything with the bookcases, but it did. The rest of the walls were kind of plain. And the next slide is going to show how we solved the problem of the bookcases. This is corduroy. It's men's corduroy fabric. I always wanted men's fabric on the wall. We initially tried some, what was it, herringbone? And I wasn't too happy about that. But here is the corduroy, and it keeps the room warm. You wouldn't believe New Orleans is cold, but actually we've had some really cold weather recently, and our city's unique. Being on a river, it's a damp cold, and our house is raised like 5 to 6 feet off the ground for flooding. So when the wind whips through the bottom of the house, you can cut on the heat and your head will feel like it's on fire, but your feet will be like blocks of ice. So
these houses were meant for the heat.
And these are more views of the library. I also like to do needle pointing. So most of the pillows in the house, you can see that I've needle pointed. It's kind of my work. Now, as an obstetrician, I'm up a lot at night, and you have to do something between all those contractions. So next.
So the house, as we said, is a double, and we had one bathroom on one side and on the other side another bathroom. And we figured, well, there's no point in having two bathrooms. There's plumbing. So we thought, let's just put a really nice bar and kind of fancy it up.
The pilasters that you see here are really 18th century, and we got them at one of the antique stores on Magazine Street in New Orleans, which, I mean, we have a wealth of treasures here in this city. And as well as the ornament above, a nice architectural flourish. And then the inside of the bar, which you'll see in the next slide, can show other things. There's a Louis XVI commode when we lived in a smaller house. That was our sideboard. It fit very well. And above the commode is what we call an eBay ancestor. We buy some portraits on eBay. They're better looking than some of our relatives that we have, and they look better on the wall.
And actually, this room is one of life's lessons for us. We bought this house from a woman named Anne who lived here, and she was sort of a local New Orleans character. And she rented the other side to a really good friend of ours named Walker. And we knew both of them very well. And she sells the house to us, and we get the house. And she moves to San Miguel de Allende. And on a trip back to New Orleans, she said, well, I want to see what you're doing to your house, to my house. And we said, sure, come on in and look at it. Well, she looks in horror at her bathroom that had been destroyed. She loved the tile. And I thought, oh, okay, this is something good to know. Never show someone your house while you're renovating it to the former owner.
On the right, you can see a photograph of the hallway between the two bathrooms. At the top, there's a plaster of a stag by Albert Hadley estate that I got online.
More pictures of the bar.
That's Absinthe in the middle, which New Orleans is famous for. And then this is a music room. We need a music room because we play the piano constantly. It's a room that's well used. A lot of the furniture in this room came from our previous house, which we had some decorative help of someone who was slavishly devoted to Louis XVI. So everything has a straight leg. But the next slide will show a little more of what we did. You can see before on the left and after on the right. The sconces in this room actually belong to Arturo Toscanini, and we have other musical references to the room as well.
If any of you learned how to play the piano, you'll know that you have to do those exercises when you're a kid. Czerny, Hannon, the stuff we all hate. Our photographer, one of the photographers for the book said, I want to do something whimsical of the two of you all with music. And we said, oh, I hate to destroy music, but none of us had an issue with ripping up Hannon and Czerny exercise books. Here we are.
Next, we can look at the Raj room. This is a guest room downstairs. We kind of had to do work down to the studs in this room, but as the next slide will show, I think it turned out pretty good. I spent some time. I went to Columbia to medical school, and the last 6 months I was in India learning to deliver babies and some plastic surgery. But this is a room that has a lot of the things that I got when I was in India. The prints on the wall are prints of the British Raj, but there are all kinds of trinkets here. The next slide is going to show Another passion of mine, toy soldiers, and I don't think this is Lord Curzon and Lady Curzon on the elephant here. Oh, but they are on the right, but unfortunately too small for you to see. So all the more reason why you must come visit us in New Orleans.
You saw the dining room earlier. These are just some more detailed shots of it.
The dining room actually in this double, with the wall was completely removed in the middle, a beam put in to hold the chandelier. And the dining rooms individually are about 15 feet by 15 feet before removing the wall. Afterwards, it affords us with a big dining room of 30 feet long. So you can see it's a very used room in our house. Actually, the architect who was giving us some advice said, you don't need a 30-foot dining room. Nobody has that anymore. And you can't get people out of this room.
It is a great room. More shots.
The picture on the right shows an obi, which is, a Japanese kind of part of a Japanese lady's wardrobe that kind of wraps around the waist. And it's kind of in the 1970s in Arkansas, it was kind of like I don't know, a signature of a great hostess. They had these obies going down the dining room table. So we have some antique obies that we like to toss out on the dining room table. This is a room that's dedicated to things British, and Queen Victoria is in the title because if you look above the bed, you'll see Queen Victoria's portieres, her summer portieres from Windsor Castle. And that was a eBay or an Etsy purchase late one night while I'm trying to get somebody delivered. And it just formed the basis for this room where we keep, as the next slide will show, a lot of collections of British things, pillows, pictures on the wall, as well as more toy soldiers, tea sets. And the next slide is going to show my bedroom. This is kind of the grand tour bedroom. Curt will definitely love this. It has lots of intaglios. Some are 18th century and some are actually kitchen magnets that I just happen to be attached to. So they're all framed. On either side of the bed are two closets. I was inspired, I guess, by the Duchess of Windsor, who had two closets on either side of her bed. So I made them too. You can see them in progress. And the final product. And I think that's me post call on the bed on the right. And again, these are just more trinkets and objects. That's my great-grandfather, my namesake, in the photograph on the right. His name was Earl Quinn, and a little tea set from the Directoire period.
I have my room, which I love because it's not the grand tour. It's just sort of a simple Southern room. And I had an old 4-poster bed that was my mother's that I inherited. And Quinn has always wanted to have a lit a la Polonaise with this crown up top and this very nice material hanging. And I thought, no, I wanted open air. I don't want anything hot. And so he convinced me when he found seersucker material online for the cheapest amount of price. And I said, fine, let's do it. Now I'm thrilled. I love the stuff.
So you've seen the theme. Now what we're going to do, and what the rest of the book does, are the celebrations, how we use the house. So this is a section called Seasonal Celebrations. I alluded to the fact that my parents and grandparents and uncles, aunts, we gather together and go duck hunting and dove. And so we have access to a lot of wild game. And this is a wild game dinner. Autumn is a wonderful time for us because we do get wild duck, and really our guests just love it. I mean, it has such a taste that's different than a supermarket specimen, I guess you would say. Next. Now, this is Beethoven's 250th birthday. Poor Beethoven turned 250 in 2020. And because... But, any excuse to have a party. We had a Beethoven recital, and then after that, we threw the house open for a limited number of guests. We could limit social distance activities at that point. And the top left, Michael, take it away.
Yeah, our book is also, in addition to just pretty photographs, we have recipes and family recipes. That one on the left is a bourbon slush, which has been in our family for generations. And it would be my duty on Thanksgiving, on Christmas morning, to go deliver that bourbon slush to mothers. We called Mother's Little Helper because it certainly helped them slaving in the kitchen. And my poor mom has terrible spelling, and I did this on purpose to her, so I know she's going to haunt me for this. Next, the outside of our house. So this is pretty funny too. Quinn is an expert needle pointer and a great surgeon. So he can show off his very good skills as a surgeon with this impeccable needlepoint work. He decided one year we have a dining room and he has a lot of Imari porcelain, which he adores, and he thinks that red and green looks terrible with Imari. So
They do, it clashes.
so he said, we're going to do turquoise and orange this year. So we have native Louisiana oranges, which are fantastic. They're navel oranges. They're delicious. It's one of our best produces from the state. And Quinn decorated oranges, but he also put up this turquoise. And his father calls him, you can see on the left on the house, we have turquoise wreaths. So his father calls us while we're in the kitchen one night and said, well, we can't wait to come to New Orleans. We're looking forward to our trip. And Quinn said, yo, you're going to love it. I did turquoise this year. It's beautiful. And his dad stops mid-sentence, screams to his mother. Now, remember, they live in Arkansas and they live near Memphis. And he says, Betty, Quinn has changed the colors of Christmas on us. And we laughed.
Pick up the phone.
Yeah, he laughed. So next, more of the seasonal celebrations. The croquembouche on your right is a very popular Christmas confection that we have here.
And you can see Mr. Chopin, who we play a lot at the croquembouche. And on the right in that photograph is a 19th century chocolate set. I don't know if you can see the handle, but it has the little gilded, I mean, not gilded, but the little gold bees. The house is also used for a lot of parties at Christmas time. This is an English-speaking union tea. We always give a annual Christmas tea, and Fortnum & Mason looms large at these celebrations. You can see plum puddings and various sweetmeats. We love Turkish delight. The more the merrier. The next slide's going to show that's the magnificent plum pudding.
Yeah.
And on the left.
Yeah, one year Quinn decided it would be really fun to sugar fruit, which comes out absolutely beautiful. I mean, it is very pretty. And then he actually even impressed some decorator from Dallas who came into town, and she wanted to try it. Well, then the next day, of course, we have about 10,000 fruit flies. So that put an end to sugared fruit, never to be done again. Here are the oranges I referenced earlier, the Louisiana native navel oranges, and that Quinn decorated beautifully here. So Christmas ends and everybody's depressed, but in New Orleans, we're just getting started because we have the Carnival season, which begins on Epiphany, 12th night, and people celebrate the beginning of Carnival season with a traditional king cake, and we threw a dinner. And it's been kind of a fun tradition to do a 12th night dinner as the kickoff for Carnival season. During COVID, unfortunately, Mardi Gras was basically canceled. All these floats were canceled.
Actually, New Orleans in 2020 was the epicenter for COVID, and it was from Mardi Gras. And the first index case in Tennessee and Arkansas were from that Mardi Gras. So the next year, 2021, the mayor called off Mardi Gras. And Mardi Gras is a cottage industry that, people work on Mardi Gras all year long. So it could really impact the city financially. So what people decided to do was take the Mardi Gras, the ornamentation and the decoration that normally go on floats, and put them on their homes. And so it became known as Yardi Gras.
And it stuck, hence the new term of art, Yardi Gras. And then on the right is a confection that's called Dauberge, which is a local Louisiana cake. This is fake. It's plaster of Paris, but it looks pretty darn real. And then there is king. Quinn was king of his crew, and that's the captain of his crew and the queen. And she was queen back in the 90s. This can still fit in her dress, too, from then. And then here's Quinn all dressed up in his regalia as king of his carnival crew. Lundi Gras. Also, right the night before Mardi Gras is another fun celebration. New Orleans hosts a number of carnival balls, which are very fancy, and they present debutantes, costume, women in long ball gowns. This year it was canceled, the year of this photograph. This was 2021, and we threw a party, and it's usually a sea theme.
Proteus is the crew that usually is involved with Lundi Gras, and their pre-presentation cocktail hour is not to be missed. It's known as Delicacies of the Deep. And so they have mounds and mounds of you know, oysters and shrimp and fresh seafood. And for those of you who are interested in decorative arts, the seafood themed plates on the right are from the estate of Mario Boada, who was a great friend of mine. And so next.
Here we go. Quinn has never been a fan of the combination purple, green, and gold, which are the traditional Mardi Gras colors. And you also get pretty tacky plastic beads that are thrown from floats. But yet, I give him kudos for this. He put all these beads and made them look beautiful. And the purple, green, and gold here is stunning. So I have a feeling he's going to do the colors a little more often now that he figured out a way. We decorated our garden statuary and also some of these statues in the house with beads and masks and making it all kind of fun.
The bust on the left is, for those of you in the decorative arts, was from the estate of Keith Irvine.
I'm not much of a baker. I like to cook, but baking is difficult. And I tried to put in recipes in the book that even I can do. And one is this lemon souffle cake, which is very easy and delicious. It's our friend's recipe from Alabama. We decided to throw a dinner at our house on Mardi Gras, which traditionally people go to balls with white tie. And
yeah, they're always white tie. So it almost feels weird if you're not in white tie at least once during the year. But so this was a limited distance, socially distanced episode, and we were able to invite 6 people over. Next. As honorary consul to Great Britain for Louisiana, my boss asked me to, during Black History Month, to produce and develop a documentary that celebrated the Black interest in food and music in New Orleans. So this is a different artist featured on the right. His name is Tug Rice, and he lives in New York. And he does work for the Ritz in London and the Carlisle, and Halcyon Days actually is using him for their miniature boxes and stuff. But this shows me at the piano, and full disclosure, my patient, who allows me to say she's my patient, Anais St. John, is a wonderful Black entertainer, cabaret singer. And the next slide is going to show more events of the Creole Supper.
Gumbo is there. That's a big Creole delicacy. And it's done in so many different ways. We had a food historian here who basically told us that Louisiana's cuisine is identifiably unique. We have a unique cuisine here. So she said when you see it, you know exactly what it is. You know it's Creole food. You know it's gumbo. It may taste different. Each gumbo tastes different from the next, but it's recognizable as gumbo. And different parishes in Louisiana have different takes on their own Louisiana Cajun or Creole cuisine. And here you see this is potato salad. Usually we have rice, but someone said in one of the parishes, potato salad's what they use, and that's what their family does. And she brought it and made delicious potato salad.
The bottom right is what Michael would rather have than a birthday cake on his birthday.
My favorite dessert in the world, floating island. Here, islands. Recipes in it too.
So Easter rolls around, and this is what we do with our table at Easter time. I think if you advance the slide one more, you can get a detail. Yeah, there we are in the middle. This is blind Earl porcelain. The 5th Earl of Coventry had a riding accident that left him blind. So the Worcester Porcelain Factory was commissioned to create a porcelain that was really kind of like porcelain in Braille. He could appreciate it with his fingertips. And these are leafy patterns that are very collectible. This is Dr. Wall, 18th and 19th century blind Earl porcelain, and some other Chelsea. Anyway, I love putting all this out on the table, and some people are kind of horrified that we eat off of them, but really I just use ice cream on these because I don't want anybody taking a knife and scratching it up.
No.
Next.
I laugh. So Quinn's needle pointing is really, really good here. And here's a great example. I'll let him tell you about Dorothy Parker.
Yeah, Dorothy Parker in the Algonquin group. Whenever her doorbell would ring for her New York apartment, she would say, "What fresh hell is this?" and then open the door. And Michael didn't want me writing that, needle pointing that out on this bell pull that's behind the door. So my friend in England translated it into Latin, but that's basically what it says. What fresh hell is this?
Much better than greeting your guest with that saying on the door. Since about 1994, we have been members of a book club, and it's one novel a month. And consequently, we have read a lot of books. And a lot of times, some members will just throw in fried chicken and call it a night, and others really want to do it up and kind of do something thematic with our book. And we have consistently tried to either put in recipes or food from whatever we're
The
reading.
next slide will show Vanity Fair.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see this is the Duke of Wellington there, and the British flag napkins. And the next slide will show we made curry for this occasion because in Vanity Fair, Becky Sharp has a curry dish, and she mistakenly thinks that adding chilies is going to make it cool. And she finds out, of course, that
Nothing chilly about it.
Very, very hot. Another book that we read was Hannah Rothschild's The Baroness. And we've both been to Waddesdon Manor, and the Waddesdon Manor had a greenhouse where the Rothschilds used to have their tropical plants, but also a lot of carnations. So we used carnations for the flowers here, and this is outside in our backyard.
Carnations can be beautiful. Goodbye, Mr. Chips was another selection. And in this one, we looked up the food, and the food is all boarding school food. And we thought there's just no way. We're not having mushy peas. But Mr. Chips does give pink icing cupcakes to his students. And we decided we would at least have, you can see the second picture, pink iced cupcakes.
And Pim's Cup, of course.
Yes.
And
Mr.
Chips didn't get picked up, but you know, that's keeping with the English theme. We put the bunting around the backyard just to make it festive and fun. And the next slide will show some, well, we actually had to take that out, but if you get the book, you'll see more of the collection of commemorative Jubilee and coronation china. So there's another section called Friends and Family. The first slide will show my father had an 80th birthday. His birthday, I guess for about 50 some odd years, was celebrated actually on the wrong day. It wasn't until I graduated from Oxford and he got a passport to come see me that he realized he was really born, according to the state of Arkansas, on April 16th.
My birthday.
So yeah, that's convenient. It's Michael and my dad's birthday. So these are just pictures, as the next slide will show more of his birthday party, which culminated at a wonderful restaurant in New Orleans, Galatoire's, where we had Marilyn Monroe dressed like gentlemen prefer blondes come out of a box and sing him happy birthday. Their anniversary, my parents, who are seen on the left side together, we had in Memphis. Elvis has a lot of connections to my family that I can't go into now, but the king is shown on the left side as well. It pays to have a family that is in construction and home building because they were able to build us a big fancy tiki hut. And so this shows more of what we did for their birthday party. I mean, for their 60th anniversary. And Tug Rice again did an illustration for us to commemorate the event. My 60th birthday happened a few years ago, and I participated in the Mario Boada auction. I love participating in these auctions. My office manager, the auction happened during the day, so she was trying to get things, and no one could predict the stratospheric costs that things brought at that auction. And after about 6 items that I missed, she came to me and she said, you know, Dr. Peeper, I've had 7 stints and I'm just not cut out to do this. So I said, you know, to hell with it, I'm going to get this terrine because we love seafood in New Orleans, and this is all of a seafood theme. And the terrine, as well as the 2 spill vases next to it, we used for seafood dinners. Now, I mentioned that I'm from Arkansas, and there's a place in Arkansas, the Delta of Arkansas, and these ladies on the left, on the right, are some of the ladies that are been neighbors, and families have been neighbors for years. Anyway, they came to New Orleans, and we had a big Delta dinner for them featuring some of our New Orleans and Delta food.
Danette's been on Curt's trips.
Yep. And then here's the room set with some china made by Degournay that features my arms. Degournay is mainly known for wallpaper, you know, painted scenes in the Chinese, Japanese themes, but they also will do custom bespoke china. And so these are my my arms. And
Quinn has a good tidbit about the arms. Tell him.
Oh, well, the arms, if you can look in the middle, they're
I don't know if you can close up.
They are, there's a keyboard across the top, and the Sir Henry Bedingfield, the York Herald at the time at the Royal College of Arms, ran this idea by me, and I was thinking, I don't know if I really want that. He said, well, it's only available to one other person, because if you can look at the black keys, you'll see them 2, 3, then 2. So someone else has 3, 2, 3. And Henry said, I can offer you 2, 3, 2. You have to take it or it's going to be struck from the record. Somebody else is going to get it. And I said, no, that really doesn't sound like me at all. And then I started thinking, well, I wonder what this is all about. I'll just inquire. And I said, who is the person that has 323? And his email was 3 words, Sir Elton John. And I said, oh, well, maybe I'll take that after all. And what's on the red part of the shield is a stork, because, I deliver babies. Next. Just another scene of the Delta dinner. Now here's our nonprofit section, using the house for nonprofit organizations, playing and paying it forward. And for the National Trust of Scotland, US, to commemorate my participation in that, this is a Burns dinner. And ironically enough, we had that dinner just last night,
Yes.
again, with the piper and everything.
And the same people. It's our tradition.
Another historic house in New Orleans is Beauregard Kai's house. And we have had several events. Michael's on the board there. And for this, we had a Schubert and Sauterne night. And the artist on the left is Lawrence Manat, and he's well known too. He's so clever. You can see the Sauterne bottle having a glass with Schubert. He lives in Morocco, and he does illustrations for Cire Trudin candles and all sorts of things. The Royal Oak, we are happy to help sponsor some of their events here in New Orleans, and this was the Duchess of Rutland came. And in her crest, I love heraldry. There are peacocks. So this china has a peacock, floating around in the center. And for her, she wanted all Louisiana food, so we made shrimp Creole. That recipe is also in the book.
I'm a board member. Well, I'm a Louisiana co-chair of the French Heritage Society for our Louisiana chapter. And every year we get French interns that come to New Orleans, and we usually get about 5 a year, which is a lot of fun. It's very rewarding for us. And everyone here, all members try to entertain these interns to make sure they come back, and they always have great memories of New Orleans. This is Laura Plantation. The French Heritage Society gave a grant to Laura for their gardens. Next. And you'll see we threw an outdoor picnic for the French interns, which was a lot of fun, hot as hell. I always laugh because the French come to Louisiana and they never want to have air conditioning. They hate air conditioning, and we love our air conditioning because it's too hot. But sometimes roaches and rats make appearances, and that they do not like. On the top right, that is a St. James Parish delicacy called shrimp and beans, which is absolutely delicious. I didn't know how popular that dish was back there, but we made it, and it's been.
And that recipe is in the book as well. Next. I mentioned the English-speaking union several times. We also have a summer tea, and this is an example of that. And this is not particularly fine porcelain, but I think it's a fine reproduction. It's from the Royal Collection, and it's based on the late Queen Mother's collection of Chelsea porcelain. Now, I knew after Rockenbach that we were going to have a little letdown, and I'm a researcher in postpartum depression. And so Rockenbach morphed to Moe and Show. That's Mozart and Chopin. And the next slide will show that during COVID, we were not able to do the Moe and Show we wanted to. And so we found that, believe it or not, there's a man with a white pickup truck and a white piano. And you see the string players are masked. And we were actually able to give classical concerts on street corners, and people could socially distance, bring their lawn chairs, and make it a time to get out of the house, because people were pretty much zoomed out at one point.
Yeah, this was our practice session, and that was our neighbor's driveway, and we just sort of took it over one Sunday. Now we have a friend named Betty Miller who lives in a tiny little town in Alabama, and she said, well, I want to have you come and come to my house called The Porches. And we are our same string quartet. We learned these 2 piano concertos. And luckily for us, Mozart and Chopin wrote versions for string quartet. So we were able to play these big concertos with a small little string orchestra.
And this was a benefit for the Montgomery, Alabama Symphony Orchestra.
Back again at the historic Beauregard Kai's house. Here we are playing an outdoor concert. They have a beautiful courtyard.
And this is actually fun because Moen's show is that this is a beer garden called Chapatulas Chop Yard. Chapatulas was an Indian-derived name, and so you can see the white piano and the white pickup truck in the garden. In the center is Brian Batt, who's an actor, well-known actor. He was in what's that?
Mad Men.
Mad Men, and
Uh-huh.
was also in
Jeffrey.
yeah, Jeffrey.
Broadway. Mhm.
Anyway, so we coaxed him into dressing up like Mozart and reading some Mozart letters. So that's the end of volume 1, and really kind of the end of our presentation. We didn't know how this book was going to do. I'm happy to say, and shocked at the fact that I think we've sold over 5,000 copies. So our publisher has given us the green light to go for a second volume, which will be about our, we have a Mississippi house, and that's kind of the silver lining of the COVID cloud. I thought the world was coming to an end, and sort of took some retirement money and got a beach house in Mississippi. So that'll be the subject of volume 2. So
Wow. I'm going to thank you both so much, because that was beyond wonderful. And I have to say, the first time I ever came to New Orleans, I think I stayed with you guys. I remember when I woke up that first morning, I didn't know what country I was in. I couldn't believe it was the United States. And for those of you who have any doubt, just looking at this presentation, I think the southern United States is the most like the old aristocratic Britain. So before we get to your questions, we have some upcoming programs and a tour that I would like to mention. First, as you see on your screen, we have 2 spots left on our March tour to New Orleans, which will, guess what, feature an event at Michael and Quinn's house. There are also online programs that I'd like to mention as well. On February 7th, 14th, and 21st, we have a 3-week online class entitled Demystifying DNA, Getting Started with Genetic Genealogy. On February 9th, I will be hosting the wonderful Ben Cowell, who is the director of the Historic Houses Association in London, and he'll be talking about the revival of the British country house since the end of World War II. And then on February 23rd, I'll be giving a lecture about one of the finest houses in the United States, Linwood Hall, just outside Philadelphia, which has just last year been purchased by a preservation trust. This house has the longest facade of any house in Europe. It's rather, I'm sorry, in America. It's rather astonishing. It's really important that you type your questions into us now, and we'll answer as many as we possibly can in the time that we've got. So let's start off with a question that I've heard a number of times, Quinn. What is the ESU?
Oh, English Speaking Union. And the English Speaking Union was founded at the end of World War I, about 1918, by a fellow named Sir Evelyn Wrench in London. And the United States joined with the branch in 1920. And the mission is basically, it's changing lives through our language, whether it's teaching new immigrants how to speak English, high school kids Shakespeare for a competition, and teachers. We send several, we send a lot to Oxford, Cambridge, and the Globe for summer enrichment.
That's great. Thank you. Melissa asked where your house is. She said it's not the French Quarter. I think it's in the Garden District, but can you tell us more about the location?
That's correct.
It's actually pretty funny. So we are on Louisiana Avenue is the end of the Garden District and the beginning of Uptown. But there are some historic scholars that say our street, Delachaise, is still in the Garden District. But thankfully for tax purposes, they don't think we live in the garden.
Felicia wants to know if you have a special room to store all of your sets of china and tableware, which you must have. You must have a separate house for that, considering how many services you have.
Can you repeat the question? Do
you have a special room just for your china?
Yeah, the most commonly asked question. Well, we do, but there's a lot of china under beds and under drop cloth tables and maybe sofas. At my office.
Everybody wants to know about the man in red behind you. So can you tell us about who that is and why he's important to you guys?
Well, this is a Sir James Pickersgill painting, and it is, can you see better? It is Sir Thomas Wilson. He was a professional mercenary on his chest are medals from many, many countries. He actually fought with Wellington. And it means a lot to us because the guy who used to live in this house actually willed me that painting.
Really? Oh, that's so cool.
Walker
Really nice.
Ronaldson, and he left me the painting. So I like to think he's still here. And I think he is, because sometimes we go in the bar and the vodka's gone and there hasn't been anybody over.
Ginny wants to know if you prefer brunch or supper shindigs.
Oh, we like both.
And that's Ginny McCahey, by the way.
Oh, hi, Jenny.
Hey,
How
Jenny.
are you? We like both. I like the entertaining because the daylight's so beautiful. And we have all these wonderful banana trees. And the green banana trees look just great. But dinner's fun too. People drink more in the evening than a brunch, of course.
Well, and I don't mind a breakfast shindig either.
Sure.
Wow. God, that's a lot of work to do before you get up in the morning. Quinn, can you tell us more about your grandmother?
Oh man, I could go on for hours and hours. It could be a subject of another book. She was a formidable person, but she was really a lot of inspiration for my piano and my studying, and she was just fantastic. But she really knew how to throw a shindig. Now she didn't like that term, but you know, every Sunday she would bring out lace tablecloths and crystal and china, and I think that's how I learned how to behave at a table from the day I was born. And I had her for 28 years. So
That's wonderful.
she was a wonderful teacher and very beloved. My mother actually resented the fact that we got on so well. And my grandmother just shot a look at her and said, well, you know, we both have a common enemy.
I wish I could have known her. She
Well,
sounds like she was indeed formidable. Lori wants to know if you create your own floral arrangements or if you have a florist do them for you.
a mix of both. Quinn's pretty darn good at it, I have to say. But we do have a florist. We have a friend. We actually have a flower store right next to our house. And one of my best friends is a florist. So we are taking well care of when it comes
And
to
actually,
flowers.
I delivered her.
Yeah.
And
So,
so,
so I don't mean to actually leave you out, Michael, but is there anything that Quinn doesn't do? I mean, needle pointing, delivering babies, getting MBAs. Because I want to tell you guys, when he got his MBA, I think I was staying with you, and you said to me, "I'm bored. I need to do something else." It's like, who in the hell has a full-time job delivering babies and decides to how far did you have to drive to take those classes? A long way.
yeah.
And you went to get an MBA as a doctor.
Well, actually, I did the program that was blended, so you could do half of it. You could do a lot of it at home. I told my CEO, I'm not getting it unless I can do it in bed, and you really could. You could do it online, but you had to go for us. You know, the first week of every semester, you had to be there. And I wanted to go to a program where they had the summer semester in England.
Of course you did. Can you tell us how you make marbleized paper? Speaking of the many things that you do, Quinn.
Well, you know, for the people coming down, maybe we can demonstrate if y'all want to go to the studio. But it's a process. But you know,
I've seen YouTube videos on it, which is unbelievably cool. It's much more complicated than you would think. And I think I love marbleized paper. Actually, we're just talking about. Oh my God, look at that! Did you make that, Quinn?
yeah, this is big.
So is that actual paper that's glued to that?
Yeah, yeah. Now this is not my marbleized paper, but I do decoupage, and so it's all over the house.
So
This is a box. I like the theme of composers. So this Mr. Chopin on a 5,000 note, and then these are stamps of Chopin, and then I've got actually Rachmaninoff for rock on the top, and this is actually a banknote of under Tsar Nicholas II.
wow. So that looks like some of the in papers in the book. Am I getting them confused?
Oh, that's true.
So speaking of Rachmaninoff, somebody else wants to know why Mr. Quinn, Dr. Quinn, Lord Quinn, Rock is one of your favorite composers.
Well, he's so romantic. I mean, when I was taking piano at age 8 to 12, Beethoven was just it. Then I think I went through puberty and then I switched.
Who does that, huh? Okay.
I found true love and moved to rock.
Way can I play that stuff?
Michael, what is the floating island?
Oh, it's this fantastic dessert. So my grandmother made it for me when I was a child, and I loved it so much. I said, I don't want a birthday cake from the bakery. I want floating islands. It was one of the few things she could make. She could not cook, But I have a recipe and I put it in the book. But it's a French dessert that was very, very popular in the 50s, and it's sort of gone out of favor. But once in a while, I'll find it. I think in New York, you can get floating island on the menu at La Goulou, and usually in old Parisian bistros, they'll have floating island. It's wonderful. Ile flottante.
It's custard with the peaks of what are they?
Meringues.
Meringue.
Oh, the meringues. I wonder what the peaks were. So an anonymous attendee says, Michael makes an outstanding breakfast. I don't know what to say to that, but so somebody who isn't identifying themselves seems to like your breakfast, Michael.
Good. Oh, it's always, yeah.
Tony wants to know how many dining room chairs you have.
Oh, well, that's a good question. So we have, well, we have less than we once did because some of them are broken, but we have 12 of one set and 8 of another, so they can function. We can move them in the music room and have people, sit, be comfortable for a concert, and then we can place them around, the table. So, yeah.
So those sets, what are they? Are they English? What century are they?
No. Everything, like I alluded to the fact that there was this, friend in decorating. She's actually a journalist, but she helped me when I first moved to New Orleans, when I had inherited some English things, but because my mother upholstered them, she wasn't giving them up. So I was in New Orleans, and she said, well, I think you should go with some French furniture. So they're mainly Louis XVI things. And actually the dining chairs I like better, because Chippendale dining room chair is great if you're looking for a back scratcher, but if you want to be in comfort for a couple hours, like
it's true, actually.
Padded chair.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also sadly, I love Chippendale, but they can't take a lot. They're very fragile, especially the shield back chairs. Maureen asks, what is the largest number of people you've hosted at your home?
I think about 100.
Wow.
Yeah.
Geez, that's a lot of people in that house, man.
Dinner, and not for dinner. And I can tell you, for 100, we make use of the outside space very well. Sometimes,
of course.
National Trust of Scotland was here. We hosted them for a weekend, and we had a tent for them outside.
So, somebody wants to know how many people you have dusting, vacuuming, and cleaning, and how often do they come in?
My God.
Oh boy, what a sore subject this is.
It is a sore subject. Maria comes once a week, and I adore Maria. She's my favorite person ever, and I speak Spanish. So
I've been trying to fire her for 12 years.
Maria drives him bananas. Maria's not going anywhere. Maria.
So we're not going to go down that road anymore. Before we go, I want to hold up this book to everybody. So this is almost 400 pages. Look how thick this book is. And it is just gorgeous. I mean, I cannot say enough about it. You'll get a link. There's some in papers I was talking about. You'll get a link from Ginevra in the follow-up email that we'll be sending out after today's event. But what I really want to do is thank you all. Thank you for joining us. As you leave the event today, you'll have the opportunity to fill out a survey and give us your feedback. As we continue to expand our webinars and online offerings, any and all feedback is extremely helpful and much appreciated. This free webinar was made possible by the generous support of members and friends around the world. Please consider making a gift to American Ancestors to keep these programs free and to create more programs for you and others to enjoy. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you soon on our future online programs. Thank you both, Quinn and Michael, and goodbye for now.